Today we shall be talking about approaches and methods in language learning. Listeners, if you have any query, then please do call us at our toll-free number, and if you want to ask any other question, then please write to us on our email. We will definitely try to answer all your queries either live if you call us on our toll-free number, or later on if you write to us on our email. So friends, getting back to our topic, I am Dr. Renu Tomar. Today I shall be talking about approaches and methods in language learning. Friends, here I am referring to English language learning. English language learning, as all of us know, is a second language in our country, and language as such can be taught either as a formal method or informal means. Formal means in the classroom, informal means outside the classroom, may it be in the society, may it be at your home, or may it be in the market. So, language is something which is learnt because it is means of communication. So, being a means of communication, it is being learnt almost everywhere. We have to use it as to express ourselves. This is called speaking. We have to understand it. For that, we have to listen to it, and to be expressive in writing, we have to write it, and to understand the thing which we are reading, we have to read it. So, friends, let us be clear about one thing, that language means four skills. One is speaking skill, second is listening skill, third is reading skill, and fourth is writing skill. So, today as we are going to talk about approaches and methods of language learning, then naturally we would be talking about language learning as a whole, and apart from that, methods specifically which suits the particular skill out of the four skill. Friends, why do we need? First of all, let us be clear about the fact that the language curriculum has twofold goals. One is attainment of basic proficiency, which should be such as we need or as we have in our natural language learning. Second, language has to be developed into an instrument for abstract thinking and knowledge acquisition. So, there are two goals, and accordingly, being teachers, we have to teach students in our class, so that both the goals are satisfied, both the objectives are satisfied while teaching in the class, and the student learns accordingly. So, first of all, let us talk about the old or ancient method which all of us know, grammar translation method. Friends, what is grammar translation method? This was the method, if you know, that the English was introduced by the English in India which was a colony to them. So, how they taught English? They taught it through grammar translation method. So, grammar translation method means that you translate each statement of English into Hindi or vice versa as to understand it. Hindi or any other language, the native language, whichever the first language, whichever we are speaking and which we are at ease with. So, here the primary goal is to develop literary mastery of the second language. For this, we utilize the first language, the mother tongue, as to understand the grammatically rules consciously, as to read, as to write. So, we translate the English language from Hindi to English or any other mother language to English. So, this was the method which was being used by the teachers as the English was introduced as a second language or the official language by the Britishers after they started developing English as an official language in their administrative setup. So, what was the basic target? The basic target was that the native Indians should understand how to read and write, so that they can do the administrative work accordingly. So, in this the translation was the mode which was utilized as to teach the language. What were the benefits? The benefits were that the reading and writing and the grammatically rules could be taught easily. What was the lacking in this method? Why we are not following this method presently? The reason being the two skills. As friends, you can see that reading and writing is emphasized in grammar translation method, but what about listening or what about speaking? It is not being emphasized because two skills are not being attended at all in the grammar translation method. That is why grammar translation method was recognized as an outmoded method and it was given up. So, what was the method? The method as far as grammar translation method is concerned was memorization. This was the strategy which students took up as to practice English, as to understand English, or as to speak, as to read English, or as to write English. So, the English words, phrases, sentences were taught, and word by word they were translated into mother tongue, then they were memorized, and accordingly they were used in the context. In this, when we talk about the curriculum, from the curriculum point of view, the L1, the native language, is quite prominent. Another lacking which we should be knowing whenever we talk about grammar translation method is that in this method the English, the language friends, let us be clear about the fact that the language is a social tool. It represents a society, it represents a situation, and that was completely cut and paste from one society, that was an English society, British society, into an Indian society. The result was that the native Indians who were learning this language, they were just memorizing it. But when it comes to understanding mode, or when it comes to being more conversant with the language, that couldn't be done. So, this was the lacking in this method. As you remember the kind of poems which we learnt when we were kids, Johnny Johnny yes papa, eating sugar no papa. In India, sugar is something which we love, which we relish, and in Indian context, in Indian society, no father is going to say that don't have sugar. But in the British society, it might be prevalent. So, these kind of poems were being memorized by kids because they were straight away taken from that society, from that particular community. Similarly, like they have there are poems on rain, not enjoying rain, not going out on rain. So, because in the England where it is very cold, rain is not something in which the child would be motivated to go out. So, that is why that language was not something which native Indians could could have a kind of a belongingness, and that is why it was very difficult to make them speak. If they could speak, the native Indians could speak. The reason was they used to read a lot, and because they used to master the vocabulary, they used to later on practice that language in different situations, so they could speak well. In grammar translation method, there is another problem, that it ignores natural way of learning language. As I already told you that it aims at passive mastery of the language. It binds the language within the rules of grammar and it makes the students passive listeners. Another method which we need to be discussed is direct method. What is direct method? The direct method is a method in which new words or expressions are connected in the pupil's mind directly with what stand for, like excuse me, please come in, may I come in. So, these are the words which are taught to the students in the situation, they can be directly used in the situation, and they are not taught through the medium of vernacular. They are taught straight away. Like if the child has to take permission to enter the class, then the child is going to ask the teacher, may I come in, ma'am. If the teacher wants the child to stand up, he or she will straight away give the command, stand up. And if the child has been left standing and he or she wants to sit down, then he or she is going to take the permission from the teacher, ma'am, may I sit down. So, this is another method in which we can teach the English language, which is direct method, that is placing the person in a situation and telling him what to say or what to speak in that particular situation. In this, English is taught as a medium of English, and the mother tongue is not taken into consideration at all, and the students are given many opportunities to listen to the spoken English, and thereby they have the mastery of the language. In this method, there is a disadvantage. What is the disadvantage? The advantage is that it suits to the students who are linguistically strong. That means the students who understand English more, if you remember that in one of our language on communication skill, we talk about the kind of environment from which the learner come, the pupil come. The environment can be either the language rich environment, or it can be poor acquisition environment. If the pupil is coming from the poor acquisition environment, that is in the environment in which English is not spoken more frequently, English is not a language which is being read by the child, which he is not listening more, which he is not speaking in that situation, then he or she will find it very difficult to pick up English in the direct method. So, this was something which was problematic when it comes to this particular oral method, where more specific the stress is on oral appeal, that is listening and speaking. So, and visual is something which is missing. So, this method suits the people who are linguistically stronger, but for the pupil who are coming from the poor acquisition environment, they face the problem when it comes to direct method. Another method which we need to talk about is bilingual method. What is bilingual method? Bilingual method means it tries to strike a balance between grammar translation method and the direct method. In this, two languages are used. That means the student will be told in the English as well as the same command will be repeated in the mother tongue. So, thereby the student can understand that this command is spoken this way in English, or this way written in English. So, when the child will listen to both the language in the bilingual method, he or she, if coming from the poor acquisition environment, will be more at ease and would be able to pick up the language easily. In the bilingual method, the aim is to help the student speak and write fluently and accurately in the target language. So, here also you can say the aim, the objective is similar to the direct method. Here also the student is helped to speak and write fluently and accurately in the target language. In the bilingual language, the mother tongue makes the student understand quickly, similarly as it was in the case of a grammar translation method. This method has a disadvantage. What is the disadvantage? Disadvantage is that because of the fact that mother tongue is being used by the students as well as by the concerned teacher for acquiring a working knowledge of English, it prevents students to direct thinking in English. So, just as in the grammar translation method, in the bilingual method also a problem comes up. Like we have come across many people who say that we can't speak good English, we can read well, we can write well, but when it comes to speaking, we cannot speak English. The reason usually given by them is that the reason is that we usually think in our mother tongue and we translate that in our mind. So, because the time taken in translating that in English makes us less confident, as well as because we are not directly thinking in English language. So, we are not so comfortable in English and we are not so spontaneous. So, spontaneity miss out. So, in a bilingual method, this is something which was missing. That is why the bilingual method was also not much practiced when it comes to teaching of English. Then there is a natural method. What is natural method? Natural method is read a lot, speak a lot, write a lot. In which language? In English language. So, listen to the English music, watch English movies, read English stories or novels, and write more in English. When it comes to diary writing, then write in English. So, in this phonetic method or the audiolingual method, in which stress is on particular skill. Which is that skill? The skill can be either speaking, it can be listening, and usually from the listening speaking comes, and from reading writing comes. So, it is a natural method, that means the person is being placed in a social setup. Being placed in a social setup means when you watch an English movie, what do? We find ourselves absorbed in that scenario. So, when the characters are speaking, we feel that characters are talking to us, and that is why we understand their language. We find ourselves at ease. We can listen them well, and if we are asked to repeat the same kind of a dialogues, then it is easier for us, because we have listened to them with complete concentration, because we found ourselves in that particular scenario. Similarly, when it comes to music, when we listen English music, what happens? We feel that music. Because we are feeling that music, the result is that we can also sing in that language. That is why you must have come across very many people who are not at all read. Read means not well read, and might not even be literate, but still they can sing English songs well. They can even speak good dialogues, because they have placed themselves in that scenario. They have listened to English more. So, they have worked upon which skill? Listening skill. So, because they have worked upon listening skill, the resultant is speaking skill. They listen, then they speak, and the result is listening skill is improving and speaking skill is improving. Friends, after having discussed all these methods, one thing must be clear to you, that no method serves as a complete method. So, in a class, as a teacher, you have to understand which is the best method and accordingly adopt that. All of us know there are the 4 important skills: listening, speaking, reading and writing. So, depending upon your situation, depending upon age of your learner, depending upon the environment from which the learner are coming, rather from the poor acquisition environment to the rich acquisition environment, depending upon the interest, aptitude, attitude of your learners, you have to pick up the method, and this would be decided by the teachers. This is completely teachers' wisdom as to decide in the context of particular skill, listening, speaking, reading or writing, which method has to be adopted when. So, friends, this is clear that no method is perfect and no method is complete in oneself. When we talk about English language, one method, one approach we really need to talk about: communicative approach. And before talking about the communicative approach, let us talk about the structural approach. What is structural approach? Structural approach, that English is being taught as a structure. That means, structure means you tell them that these are the structures of the sentences, and this is how the grammar is being placed. This is how you can utilize the appropriate vocabulary, and accordingly you can frame your sentences. So, when we take up structural approach, there are critics which feel the teacher cannot successfully teach prose, poetry, composition, and the present curricula is not suitable to follow this method. So, because of the fact that structure method does not provide the teacher the situation and the scope to teach poetry well. Poetry cannot be structured, it has to be taught with the rhythm. There is rhyming scheme, and apart from that you have to give a poetic license also. The poet usually who is writing that poetry, he would be utilizing poetic license at times. So, in the structured approach, you won't be able to explain to the learner that why the word which has been taught to him as being wrong is being used by the poet. Similarly, maybe that the poet has just used a word just because that was going well with the rhyming scheme. or it was coming good is a rhythm. So, because of this method, the structural approach is something which is not taken to be complete in itself, which is the present approach which we are using, that is communicative approach. What is communicative approach? Communicative approach means language is a means of communication. Because it is a means of a communication, so it should be taught as a means of communication. That means English language has to be taught as being appropriate in natural and socially acceptable utterance in all the context of communication. So, when teaching it, how do we have to teach when we are taking this particular approach? For example, we ask the students to imagine themselves in a hotel. When they are going to hotel, then what kind of command would they be giving, what kind of request they would be making, how they would be behaving and talking to the people with whom they have gone. So, in this context, the student is asked to learn how to speak, read or write in that particular situation. Like when we ask the student to write a diary entry about his visit to the zoo, how would he write it? He would write it only if he knows how and what he sees in the zoo, how he takes an entry, how he communicates with the people who are taking care of animals. If he has all kind of information, only then the child will be able to write a diary entry about his visit to the zoo. So, this is the communicative approach which asks the teacher to make a student feel that particular scenario, which should be natural and socially acceptable, and accordingly teach the child as to read or write or speak in that particular situation. Because here this particular approach is accepting the fact that language is a means of communication, it is a social tool. Then there is situational approach. Situational approach is similar to the communicative approach, but it gives more sound understanding. It helps the teacher to practice the structure relating to its meaning. So, in the situational approach, we give lot of vocabulary to the student as well as we teach the structural pattern. Teaching structural pattern means, teaching structural pattern would mean that we tell them that what kind of structure will go into it, and we also tell them the kind of a vocabulary, like what is the work of the teacher over here. When the teacher is working in a situational approach or in the communicative approach, teacher will be providing rubrics. Rubrics means the grammar help, the grammatical help. Apart from that, the help of vocabulary. That means the child would be understanding that what kind of vocabulary has to be used and that particular situation, and the child would be also using the appropriate grammar. That means if the present perfect tense is the only tense which is going along, then the child will have to use the present perfect tense. If the student has been asked to go in the situation which has happened in the past, suppose the child has to write about the World War which is already over. So, naturally it will be written in the past tense. So, accordingly the grammatically help is being provided by the teacher as well as to it gives the sound understanding and helps the teacher to practice the structure in relating to its meaning. So, if the teacher has to give more practice in the class, then this approach is absolutely suitable. Now, now let us talk about oral approach. Oral approach or total physical response approach. What is that? This means that the technology has to be used. We will be talking about these two approaches, oral approach as well as total physical response approach, as well as we will be also talking about how the teacher can utilize the technology. Here it is an approach which is very much suitable in the present scenario. Like apart from the teacher assisting language learning, technology can also be used. As you can see, teaching assisted language learning and technology enhanced language learning tell. What is meant by technology enhanced language learning? There are quite many presently for the language teachers as well as the people who want to learn the language. There are quite many apps, there are quite many search engine where you can go and find out the related information for yourself as to improve your language. So, what teacher can do is the teacher can utilize the technology as to enhance language learning, and wherever the teacher finds a gap or she thinks that she requires to give any kind of assistance for language learning, then she can also provide the assistance and she can also provide the information or the missing link as to improve the language of the students. So, friends, when it comes to oral approach, let us be very clear about the fact that in this oral approach, the students will be benefited more and the teacher would also find herself strengthened. The teacher will also find that she is able to give much better. So, web enhanced language learning would be there, mobile assisted language learning would be there. As I already told you, there are apps, downloadable apps you can download on your mobile and they can be used. But of course, what is the role of a teacher? Teacher's role is as to tell them that which apps have to be taken and how the practice have to be made, and then after the student has done practice with the help of some app exercise, then that can be discussed further in the class. So, English language teaching has undergone a purposeful change. And instructional material as well as techniques of teaching has undergone a lot of change, and that being a teacher, all of us can utilize the technology as to improve our teaching as well as to improve the learning of our students. Now, let us talk about listening. Listening is of two kinds, extensive versus intensive. What is intensive? Intensive means when you take directions. Directions means sit down, come, don't go, where were you? So, these are the kind of statements or the responses which we make as to be clear that here what we are doing is we are listening for particular statements, for particular directions. Like when you go to the airport or you go to the railway station, what do? We are simply trying to listen to the statements which are being spoken over there, so that we can accordingly either catch our flight or catch the train. So, there we are trying to listen to the concerned person for particular directions or particular help. And what is extensive listening? Extensive listening is when two friends are talking. What is happening? We are listening to the other friend and the friend is listening to us. So, that is a kind of extensive listening. Extensive listening can be between any people, and intensive listening is for particular target, for particular goal, for particular aim. Extensive can be similarly because we want to enjoy or we want to discuss or there is a kind of a debate going on. So, extensive listening can go for that also. Now, let us talk about phases of listening. Phases of listening would be pre-listening, while listening, post-listening, and the teacher has to accordingly arrange the material, maybe the authentic, recorded and live for a listening phase, as well as evaluate the listeners after they have listened. For example, what we do is we play a recorder to the student. When we play a recorder to the student is going to listen, and what we can do is that while listening the student can make the directions, can mark the directions in the sheet which we have given. This sheet, like in this worksheet which states that let us go to Monica's house. There are friends in the class and Monica has taken off. The result is that two of her friends, Shilpa and Jaya, decides to go to the Monica's house. Both of them are aware that Monica stays somewhere near the supermarket, but they have never been to her place, so they are going to her home. So, what will the teacher's role? Teacher is going to give the brief introduction and then teacher is going to play a recording. The recording might have questions from Jaya. to the concerned people who are met on the way and the responses received from them. What will students do? Students will listen to that recording. Students will listen that the Jaya had a word with the policeman, and the policeman told Jaya, Jaya asked the policeman, sir, I want to go to my friend's home and I know that she stays somewhere near supermarket, so please guide me to the supermarket. When she is leaving the school, she is going to the supermarket, the policeman tells her that you go straight, there will be Central Avenue. When there will be Central Avenue, you have to take the station road and go straight, don't take any left and right. There would be park also, but don't take any left right, just keep on going straight, and please take care of the fact that if there is a red light, do stop at the red light and don't try to cross it. So, friends, directions taken means what will the role of the students? Students would be listening to the policeman and accordingly marking the way which those two girls have to take to the Monica's home. Like then the teacher can go further in a recording that after the policeman, again they move and they come across a person who is just walking towards some office. Then they request that, uncle, we want to go to the supermarket, please guide us. Then the person tells them that don't go straight because there is huge traffic over there. What you can do is you can take left, then right, and then go straight. Thereby you will be able to avoid the traffic. You are small girls, so you should not be walking through the traffic. So, such kind of recording can be played by the teacher, and what will the students doing? Students will be marking as they would be listening to the teacher. So, and what will the post learning work of the teacher? Here the teacher is going to evaluate the sheets and see that whether the students have really listened to the recordingly well, and have they been able to understand whatever was being talked in the recording, and have they been able to mark the way appropriately. If they have been, then that means the listening skill has gone well. Whenever we talk about listening, listening has to be arranged by the teacher as per the requirement, and accordingly the teacher has to decide upon the lesson plan. So, the lesson plan is usually decided not only based upon the curriculum only, but also depending upon the learning level of the students as well as interest level of the students, and the teacher has to also appropriately organize her material and give the language practice to the student. What kind of methods which we can use for promoting speaking skill? Role play, one of the method which is very prominent and very interesting as well. Role play. In role play, what the teacher can do is that when she is dealing with some drama, there is a drama which is part of a curriculum, she can give roles to the students, and the students would be asked to speak the dialogue of particular person, and also as per that required social context. So, after teacher has given the information to the learner, the student would be speaking as if he is in the role play. How will that help a teacher in promoting speaking skill? One thing, that the student would be finding such activities, such methods interesting. Secondly, that students, when they are doing speaking skill as a role play, they are able to imbibe the situation also well, and they can also discuss the situation later on. So, it is not memorization of the roles, it is living the role. When a person is living the role, then naturally the person would be able to understand also better. Vocabulary enhancement would also be there, and if student is committing some kind of a mistake, friends, this is very important. Being a teacher, you should be very sensitive about the fact that in case of any method, particularly the kind of a methods we are discussing, may it be the role play or may it be the another exercises which we will be talking about, the teacher has to be very sensitive about the criticism. Teacher has to see to it that that the teacher criticizes only students to such an extent that the student feels at ease. and the student feel that this is being done for his or her improvement. Students should not feel that they have committed some kind of a fallacy, they are at fault. No, they should understand that this was the lacking point, and this kind of improvement will take them step ahead. So, positive criticism is required from the teacher side, particularly when it comes to role play. Uh, Another kind of activity which teacher can take up, this is a step ahead of role play, simulation. In simulation, in the role play, the student is speaking the dialogue. In simulation also the student is speaking the dialogue, but how is it different? That it is more elaborate, like when the simulation is being taken up, the student can be asked if he is enacting a role of a doctor, if he is speaking dialogue of a doctor, then he can also come with some kind of equipment or some kind of symbol which make him look more like a doctor. Either the child can be asked to come wearing white coat, or so that he or she looks more like a doctor. So, simulation makes class more interesting, the students enjoy it more. In role play and simulation, there are many advantages, and many critics have suggested that this way the students would be feeling more confident, and the students who like to take the back seat because they are hesitant or they feel that they are not that comfortable in the language, even they would be coming up. They would also be feeling confident enough to try those role play and simulation, because they would be getting acceptance of their friends, they would be getting acceptance of the teacher. Then naturally, they would be becoming slowly and steadily more confident. So, these are the two activities for speaking skill which will improve the confidence also of the students. Another activity which we can take up for improving speaking skill is information gap. What is information gap? We provide an exercise to the student in which we give blanks. Remember friends, all of us have done it, fill in the blanks. What is that? That is information gap. In the speaking skill also can we do it? We have done it in the writing skill, if you remember, all of us have done it, and we also do it in our classes as teachers also. But can this be done in the speaking skill also? Yes. What can be done is that two students can be paired. One student might be provided the information which the other partner does not have, and the other partner would be speaking the half part, and the other partner would be the second partner would be filling the or completing the statement by providing the information which he or she has. These kind of exercise, when the two students have been paired up, is very interesting for the class as well as those students who are paired up. Another thing, the role reversal can be done later on. The student who has been making the first statement can be asked to complete the sentence with the help of information, and the other person who had the information in the initial status, he or she can be asked to state or speak the first part. So, accordingly they can understand that how the statement has to be completed. Here, if the students are of the senior level, what we can do is students can be asked to collect the information as to complete the problem, as to solve the problem. And if the students are of the lower level, what we can do is that we can simply provide the information to one of a pair. Here, because pairing has been done, it has to be understood that the pairing should not be a permanent one. That means, whenever we are doing pairing of two pupil, then second time those pupil might be deoriented with the other students, so that the activities become more effective, and students also understand that the activities are not for pairing, but activities are for understanding the language more. Everybody has to be given the opportunity to talk extensively in the target language. Another skill which is usually used and should be used in the class is interview. How to initiate this particular method as to promote, as to inculcate speaking skill in your class. Interview method Usually what the teachers do is the teacher would keep herself on a questioning mode and let the students find the answers to the question. Why can't there be a role reversal? That means the students might be asked to bring the questions and teacher has to get the information as to answer those questions. Here the teacher, first of all, the teacher would be letting the students understand that how questions have to be handled. Secondly, she would be providing the vocabulary which is required to answer those questions also. The questions also to those questions which are being asked by the students, they are also understood by the students and the answer is also understood by the students. So, what the students can do is they should prepare the interview questions, and what should teacher do? Teacher should prepare the answers, and later on what can be done is that the teacher prepares the question and students prepare the answers. Of course, for interview purpose you can't go blank in the class, you means the students can't go blank in the class, or the teacher who has to answer the question can't go blank. That means sharing of the questions and answers have to be done. So, conducting interview is a very good method as to make students understand one thing, how to introduce themselves, how to be at ease while answering the questions, as well as to understand that how to provide appropriate information in answer to the question which is being asked. Another method which we need to cover, friends, is story completion. What is story completion? We in a class, we all of us sit in a circle and being a teacher, we start a story. For example, Mohan went to forest. He was going along alone and he had an axe. With the axe, he had to cut some trees because that was the work which he was doing as to earn his livelihood. When Mohan reaches the forest, he is, after having cut 2 logs, he is too tired, he sleeps, he is feeling sleepy, so he sits down, he falls asleep. Here the teacher finishes off. The teacher says, now the students have to provide the story further. That means the student would be here, the interesting thing would be that the students would be coming with very interesting ideas, with new kind of information, and the class would also be interesting and the students would also become more creative. When the students can also be asked to add new characters as well as events or description as required by their narration. Picture narrating is also one of a technique which teacher can use. In picture narrating, what student can do is that the teacher can provide the narration to the such kind of a picture to the students, and students might be asked to narrate this picture. Here, if needed, if the students are of very junior level, what teacher can do is teacher can provide the required rubrics to the students, and students can utilize that rubrics as to narrate the picture. And of course, for helping them in the grammatical appropriateness also, here the teacher can help them. Friends, another technique which we need to understand is picture describing. What is picture describing? In picture describing, just as in the picture narration, picture describing also, what the student do is that student sees the picture and that describe whatever he or she sees in the picture. This kind of an activity, again, as all of us know, that perception is very important. When we look at all of us might look at the same kind of a picture, but may see the different angle or may stress upon the different things. So, here the students would be becoming creative as well as imagining things, and they would be learning public speaking skill as well. So, and another skill which we need to understand is picture reporting. In picture reporting, what the teacher can do is teacher can show a picture to the students. When that picture is shown to the students, the students have to report what they are seeing in that picture. They can see the various characters in this picture. For example, in this picture the students can see various characters. All the characters are doing the different things, and this picture is of the classroom. So, this also shows the different characters, how they are behaving, what they are doing in the class, as well as show the environment of the class. So, and they can also be asked to imagine something. They can imagine that whether this is a situation before the teacher has entered, or this is the situation while the teacher is writing something on the blackboard, or the teacher has left the class, or teacher is about to enter. So, they can imagine things as to report the picture. Friends, another activity which we can utilize is find the differences. This is the activity which we have done as kids, and our kids are also doing it. For example, what we can do is we can show them two different pictures. For example, we can show them picture of the girls playing football and the picture of boys playing tennis, and the students can be asked to discuss the similarities or differences in the picture. One would be the students will be talking about, here the students can be talking about the difference between the gender, the difference between the rules of those two games. So, here the students will be giving information. Apart from that, student will also be learning how to give expression to the information which they have. So, these kind of methods a teacher can adopt for promoting speaking skill in her class. Apart from that, in the finding the difference, what we can do is we can provide them the similar kind of a picture. In that picture, they have to find out the kind of a difference which they see, and accordingly they have to differentiate what is being done by the different characters. So, this is how, friends, we can promote speaking skill. We will be talking about other skills also in our coming up lecture. So, friends, do watch me in my next lecture as to understand what kind of methods can be adopted as a teacher in the class as to promote English language learning in your class. Namaskar. Thank you.